Hey guys, welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. My name is Brian.
And my name is Maggie.
And we interview Asian entrepreneurs around the world to amplify their voices and empower Asians to pursue their dreams and goals.
We believe that each person has a message and a unique story from their entrepreneurial journey that they can share with all of us. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Roslynn Alba Cobarrubias, and she is a Filipina American serial entrepreneur who has helped launch, market, and sell various companies. She has produced over 500 concerts and editorial programs with artists like Bruno Mars, Justin Timberlake, Justin Bieber, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Eminem, John Legend, Rihanna, Jay-Z, and more. She's previously been named to Billboard Magazine's 30 Under 30, the Source Magazine's Power 30, spent several years working for Myspace, and has featured in media outlets like Forbes, Finsmes, LA Times, LA Weekly, and Asian Journal. Roslynn, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. I love everybody that you guys feature, so it's an honor to be on this platform.
Definitely. Amazing introduction. We want to learn more about who you are. What was your upbringing like?
My upbringing, it's a typical Asian American household. You know, my mom came from the Philippines when she was 22. She met my father here in the States. And, really, at first she was working as a dietitian in the hospitals, but then she became an entrepreneur. She became a car salesman. Wow. And then she became an insurance agent, starting her own franchise of Farmers Insurance for over 25 years. Mm-hmm. So she was a single mother raising four of us in one household. I was the third. And she really wanted us to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, mostly because, compared to where she was growing up, she just wanted stability for us. I didn't realize that until I got older. That's why they're so critical of what they want you to do until I went to the Philippines. But yeah, I lived in a household where it was very like, oh, you got an A? That's cute. Why not the A plus, Yeah. But it was very American and very ethnic at the same time. So she would cook Filipino food every single night, but we didn't speak Tagalog or our native language in the household.
Did you guys grow up in LA, or which city did you grow up in?
I grew up in the best city in the world called Walnut, California, in between West Covina and Diamond Bar. So it's this lovely utopia called Walnut.
For you guys that don't know, Walnut is a suburb in LA.
Yes.
It's awesome over there. Great Asian food, great culture, great schools.
Yeah. I joke that I spent so much time trying to get out, and now I'm just spending my time trying to get back. Because I live in downtown LA mostly because of work, but I would love to just relax.
Yeah, walk us through your journey too. How'd you get started into the entertainment industry? How'd you get into MySpace? That itself is a crazy story. We want to hear more about it.
I mean, we'll try to do a short story long or long story short. So when I was in elementary school, my sisters were very into makeup and clothes. And I was really into hip hop and music and basketball. There was four girls. So one of us had to be the boy, and that was me. So in elementary school, I would bring recordings of the radio, the top 10 countdown, and play to my classmates at lunch. Like, I knew what was going on, right? I'm like, oh, listen to this song. They're like, I like this song. But I knew it was in the top 10 countdown, so they would like it. Well, that passion for just watching award shows, watching MTV, Yo MTV Raps, BET, I just fell in love with music, and I fell in love with basketball. And that was really what I consumed my time with. I was really an introvert. And so I spent, majority of my elementary school and junior high involved in music until I started, really DJing, when I got records and turntables, and I started creating these mixtapes or these recorded mixes for my high school classmates. And then I became the DJ at lunch or the dances.
Wow.
So that was always a passion. That's what I always wanted to do, but I never thought it could be a career. Right. Mm-hmm. So on the other side, I was very into politics, and I thought I was going to be the next mayor of Walnut. It's still a goal. So
still possible.
For me, definitely. Vote for me in 2040. My mom, she was really adamant on choosing a career that would be able to stabilize herself, to be able to take care of the family. Mm-hmm. So that's when I enrolled into political science at UCI. I went to school there for the first semester. And my grades were okay, but I found myself always ditching class. You know, I found myself like, oh no one's taking attendance. Like I don't have to go. Like I'm good. Like I hated it, you know. And I talked to a guidance counselor, and I was like, I don't know what to do because my mom really wants me to do this, but I don't like it. And she's like, well, what do you do? Like, on the weekends, I go to hip hop clubs, I go to the record shops, and I love listening to music. And she's like, well, forget about what your parents think, forget about what your family thinks or your friends. And if you had all the money in the world, what would you be doing right now? I was like, I'd be doing music. And she's like, well, that's where your passion and your purpose is. So figure that out. That summer of my first year in college, I went home, and then they had an audition to be a VJ at this music television network. And I was so excited. I was like, this is my calling. I went to the audition, probably, from Walnut to LA or to Hollywood is like a good hour. And then I stood in line for like maybe 7 hours, and I made it to the top 10. But then the casting agent said, how tall are you? And I said, well, I'm 4'11" on a good day with heels, Filipino. And she laughed and she said, how are you going to do red carpets? How are you going to do that stuff? She's like, you're too short. You'll never be on TV, but you have a personality, so try radio. And I remember leaving the audition, and I felt stupid. I was like, man, why did I even think that you could pursue your own passion, And I was like crying, and then there's 2-hour traffic back from LA to Walnut. Right?
Out in the woods.
And then I started repeating what she said. She said, you should try radio. You should try radio. I was like, oh, maybe that's my gateway. So then I started researching. There was no YouTube or Google at the time. So I started researching of where you could get a radio show near where I lived, which was Walnut, California. And then there's this amazing college called Mount San Antonio Junior College that had a radio station with a 1-mile radius called KSAC 90.1 FM. And I went to the radio station. I said, I really want a radio show. I think this is what I'm going to do in this summer. And, I want to find out if this is my calling. And they told me you had to take radio broadcasting classes. And so I enrolled into radio broadcasting that summer, and I loved it. I didn't want to leave class. I stayed after and was like asking my professor questions, etc. And then I wound up getting the radio show. And then I after that, I decided to tell my mom that I wanted to pursue music instead of law and go from a UC to a JC. And I broke her heart. She said, fine, but you have to pay for it. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to do that. So I went back to my old high school job selling shoes at the West Covina Mall at the Athlete's Foot. I would go to class. I would do the radio show at night. I would use the money that I would make at the Athlete's Foot to create flyers for my radio show. Then I would drive to all these hip hop shows to meet artists like the Black Eyed Peas or Jurassic 5, and then get them on this tiny Mount Sac radio station. But I was so tired, but I loved every minute of it. And I was broker than broke, but I just felt like I was doing something, And so that's what really kicked it off. From there, I moved the radio show to Cal State Fullerton. We started getting bigger artists and bigger guests. And then I started interning at different places and working for free at Radio Disney, at Radio Express. And then I got, my first job as an on-air programmer at the first online radio station, which it led me to becoming the director of marketing for this networking organization. It was called the National Association of Record Industry Professionals. So what our job used to be is exactly what I told you. It's very similar to Asian Hustle Network. That's why I fell in love with what you guys do. We would put together workshops, panels, networking breakfasts, and just try to get everybody in the music industry to talk to one another and to specifically professionals, because you also have the people that are beginning, but my job was to try to get the professionals in the room. Well, at one of those conferences or panels, I met Krista Wolf, who is one of the 5 co-founders of Myspace.com. And so a lot of music startup companies would come to these networking events, like how entrepreneurs come to your events. And he told me the idea, and I was like, it's like, you guys remember Friendster?
Yeah,
there was Friendster,
definitely.
Asian Avenue.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is genius. I can promote my radio show on Myspace.com. That's all that my goal was, to have this big radio show, me as a DJ, when I came to Myspace.com. I didn't know it would become the number one website in the world with 200 million users. The goal was just to get the radio show promoted on there, and it would be faster because I wouldn't have to pay for flyers. I wouldn't have to drive around everywhere. I could just direct message everybody. So he asked me to put together a list of marketing strategies that I used to help fill the networking events. And part of those things was getting entertainment. And, I had developed all these relationships from the radio show over the years that I was throwing launch party for the Black Eyed Peas Apple song. It was his first song in Tagalog because I helped put together the music video with director Patricio Janelsa, the Lumpia movie. And we were having a celebration party. I said, well, this could be a myspace.com party. You need to have parties or events with artists, and then the fans will want to be a part of it, and they'll need a MySpace profile to get in. And that became the first myspace.com party. And so then I left the networking organization. She was sad, but I started as the first person in artist relations at myspace.com. There's probably about 15 people there. And then it started gradually growing from there. So I started first by getting the artists involved, because once we had the artists on, then we got their fan bases. And they didn't have that before because they were just trying to get to everybody and anywhere. They were doing bikini contests and all these weird marketing strategies that didn't really work. But once we applied music to it, it definitely changed the path. And I wound up being there for 10 years, traveled around the world launching it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And your story has so many good nuggets to it. It's identifying your passion early on. Not a lot of people have this luxury. A lot of us, I realize, in the Asian community find our passion after college, after we do what we're supposed to do. And the reason how we find our passion is we go through a life crisis. Oh my God, I'm not happy in my corporate job. I'm meant to do more than this. And you find your passion out the hard way. The fact that your mom has been so open about that with you at such a young age is amazing. A lot of credit to her. For enabling to do something like that.
Yeah, I just want to point out a couple of things. First of all, the counselor who told you to, you don't have to listen to your parents. You don't have to listen to anyone else. Just follow your dreams. It's so rare to find a counselor like that.
I don't get counselors like that.
Yeah. And I just want to say, props to that counselor. I feel
every time I've been giving these talks, everyone asks me that, and I want to find her. Her name is Becky. I don't know how to find her but she was also, API. So she kind of got it. It's not that I was going in their comm. I was going there in tears. I hate my life. And she was going through the same thing. She's like, I've been there before, and I'm going to tell you right now, the path you're going to take, you're going to figure it out. And I was like, I'm so thankful for that. Because every time I do speak at a college, I get nervous because I know there's a lot of college students that feel the same way. And I get scared when they write me. They're like, I talked to my mom and I told her. I'm like, no. Okay, first, think about it and what are you going to do? But it's so true. You never really get that advice. And so now after this, I'm 40, right? When I speak at college or these events, I realize that's my purpose now, is to be that person to say what the guidance person told me. Because had I not, what had happened? And specifically to the Asian and Filipino communities, because we grow up so much and we don't really realize why our parents are telling us this way. We think they're against us when they really love us. And so I think that whole journey, even my music career journey, the reason why I got to work with a Justin Bieber or Drake is so when I go to the school and I show a picture with me and Justin Bieber or Drake, they'll pay attention. Because if I would talk before and there's no picture, they're like, who's this person? yeah, follow your dreams, whatever. So I think all of it was a part of the grand circle of
that's amazing. I also wanted to point out, you mentioned that you were under 5 feet, and I'm also under 5 feet. So I love how you were able to, just because someone said, no, you can't do red carpet, how are you going to do that? You didn't give up after that, and you took that and you actually pivoted and tried to seek for other opportunities. And just hearing you tell your story about you hustling, you working your 9 to 5 and using your income to pay for, printing out flyers and everything like that. You're just seeking out opportunities for yourself. And I really love that about you.
Yeah, there's two things about that. I wish I didn't take that no so literal, and I tell that to everybody now, because when I was at MySpace, I wound up hosting the Grammys red carpet for CBS, and they gave me a box to stand on. And I was interviewing Common and Justin Bieber and everybody. I was like, And then like you look at Ellen DeGeneres or Oprah, it's really not, it could have been that casting agent's preference.
Yeah.
And then two, is to definitely pivot. And for some reason we shame people when they have a side hustle.
Yeah.
And I want to like diminish that fact is like, no, we're Asian. We get shit done. That's why we can do multiple things, and it's okay. It's okay to have another doing something else to pursue your passion. And you could still have something full time. If you're a nurse, be a nurse. But if you love singing, still join the choir on the weekend. Yeah, I definitely believe in that.
Yeah, definitely love that a lot. I mean, side hustle, I feel like shouldn't be shamed. It's quite normalized nowadays. And we actually encourage side hustling a lot in the Asian Hustle Network because you can never really depend on one income. You need multiple streams.
Oh, yeah, I know. I wish they told us that when we were younger. Yeah, have multiple. We knew that. So, they tell you to get a job and work there for 50 years and go on.
We're definitely a different generation from our parents. Another really good thing I love from your story is your willingness to work hard in a new industry without pay or anything. You're just trying to gain experience. And a lot of people out there right now feel like, they only want to do something if they get paid for it. They only want to pursue their passion, they get paid for it. But a lot of things that you pursue right off the beginning with no experience, most of the time you're not going to get an opportunity to get paid. So, but then everything you learn then creates a building block and a foundation for you down the line. So I really appreciate that part of your story a lot because that's the true hustle. And that's the hustle in the Asian Hustle Network. So I love that a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I learned early on because I'm from Walnut, California. Like, who's in entertainment there? Aside from, I think they said Gerardo Group there. But like, to get people to get onto the radio show, I had to hustle and go out to LA and then bring them down or have them call by the phone. And those relationships always led me to another relationship. And then I worked for a networking organization, right? And a lot of people were just going in there with their hustle. So that taught me early on to just build a relationship, even if it's volunteering once for an event, the relationship with that person you work for could change. And it was always, the way that I got my job was always somebody recommending me. My internship would be over, they would be sad and they felt bad, they didn't have a job for me. So they would call somebody and then I got my next job, and I think the most challenging part of that was talking to my mom and like, I got, Radio Disney job. Okay, how much are you getting paid? Well, and I will get $8 after I do the street team, so you just have to do it for yourself and know what you're doing and why, because you'll always try to seek validation from other people, but it only yourself can really know what you're doing and why you're doing it. But definitely the building relationships is important. And you guys know that. You created
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. Build that relationship. Focus on your passion and goals because money will come later as you're doing better and better. Like money will just come. Just pursue your passion and goals first.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what was your experience like at Myspace? And while you were meeting all of these celebrities like Justin Bieber and Jay-Z, what was going through your mind at that time? Like, did you feel like you were nervous or were you actually like really comfortable in that stage already?
So I was comfortable around artists because I already had the radio show and I was producing concerts. That's one thing I forgot to say in between when I got the networking job. But I think it's equivalent to people that are working at Instagram or Netflix right now. When you're in the middle of it and you're the biggest company in the world or Google, you don't know because you're working so hard every day and you don't realize what's happening around you. You get more phone calls. People are asking for their Myspace passwords or their girlfriend's password.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
But you have a job and your job is to try to get as many people to utilize the platform and try to help artists get to that next level. So when I'm meeting Justin Bieber, he's not Justin Bieber yet. He's coming to the office with his mom and he's playing basketball and he's there for 3 hours and we're trying to get him to leave. Like, or Drake, he's like uploading his mixtapes for free in Canada. And we just see this kid getting millions of plays. And when you research him, he's just this actor from Canada on Degrassi. Like, so it was really their early stages. So they were new artists and they were easier to work with. It was kind of fresh. I love that feeling of finding somebody. And then, with Bieber, we went from doing his first live stream in my office to then interviewing him on the red carpet, or Drake, it was him giving away his mixtapes for free. I featured him on the homepage of Myspace, and then making him BET Rookie of the Year. Like, whenever they were able to do things off of Myspace was awesome, because they're in the real world now, and like they're actually getting credibility.
Right.
When it got nervous was when it was like childhood icons, like a Jay-Z or a Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
To this day, I asked Jay-Z for a photo. I said, "Hey, Jay, can I take a photo?" And he stands 10 seconds dead, just looking at me. And then he walks away, and I'm like, "Wait, what was that?" He's like, "But Jay-Z's never going to be like, yeah, come take a photo. That was your moment to take a photo. You didn't take the photo. He's going to walk away." Oh my gosh.
Oh my Lord.
So there's always been a couple of moments like that, where it's so hard. I can't even... a lot of artists, it happens that way. There's just some people, their aura just like makes you nervous, like a Nicki Minaj or Rihanna. Like, I can't say anything other than, "Hey, did you need water?" Because I don't know. It's Rihanna, even as a new artist, she had that vibe about her.
Oh, yeah,
so
definitely.
I definitely cherish those moments, but it was always exciting meeting somebody from our own AAPI community. Like when Bruno Mars first came to the office, Far East Movement, when they were starting out, they were guests on my little college radio show. And then now they have a multi-platinum single, like on the radio. Like, those moments were just probably my favorite. And especially when it came to Asia, I was just like, homepage, email blast. What else can we do? We're going to help you blow up because you need to,
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, like, you're doing such high level stuff. Do you practice any sort of affirmation or any sort of meditation when you're at home? How do you deal with all these constant, I don't know, quote unquote, pressure or stress that comes your way? Like, do you have any tips and advice for them?
Today is a really stressful day, to be honest. I still have to do it. I probably 10 minutes before we got on our call, and I think that's why I joined the call early, so I can inhale and exhale. I didn't realize meditation is so much needed, but because I always have 100 thoughts in my way, and I have so much responsibility that if I don't take the time to just calm it down, it'll make me nervous, until this day. I still study. Well, now I am for sure, is the law of attraction and manifestation. Looking back at my career, I didn't realize how much I manifested and how much I did. And once I realized that, I want to look back and trace it. And then how can I tell other people this, especially at a young age? But I definitely do manifestation. I want to predict, what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years. And it gets kind of scary because all of it has mostly happened. Scary in a good way, There are always bumps along the road, but yeah, for sure. And being, again, 4'11", that comment still sticks with me. Even as a leader at myspace.com, I was, the head of artist relations, but I would walk into a room and the table is there and I would sit on the side because I would feel like I'm just this 4'11" Filipino, and not really take my leadership into that because how I looked, or when I walked into the room, they thought I was an intern until I talked, so I definitely work on manifestation, on building confidence, on, overcoming anxiety until this day. And I think it's something that we'll always deal with, especially as we grow and grow with our goals.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's super powerful hearing that from you too, because a lot of people out there feel like they're alone. When you're achieving such high level of success, you're like, am I the only one that feels this way? Am I just being weak? Am I being insecure? Like, what's wrong with me? And you speaking up about those sheds light on all these people who are struggling, and we thank you a lot for that.
Yeah. I'm actually going through a manifestation process right now too, and I have to say, like, it works wonders. I think a lot of people feel like, oh, it doesn't do anything, what is the point of it? But once you start it, and once you start looking back and seeing how much you've changed, you realize that you actually speak that stuff into existence, right? Yeah. And once you start repeating it to yourself and, do affirmation, do manifestations and all of that, you have to start believing it. And once you believe it, you'll actually start doing the actions that you need to do to get you to that place where you want to go.
Exactly. In layman's terms, when I try to explain it to younger people, it's like, when you wake up in the morning and you want breakfast, right? You think about what you want to eat.
Right.
You order from the app or you cook it and then the food is there. Like that whole process of you thinking about it, having a good feeling about it to you eating it, it was manifestation in that literal sense. Sometimes the Postmate delivery doesn't come and you have to order. But just that in general, if you think about it, I mean, you have to know what you want before it comes to you. And just some people think manifestation is, I think about it and it's going to pop up in front of me. No, the law of attraction means action. You know what you want, but you have to take the action to get there, and you have to feel good on the way there. Otherwise, you won't manifest it itself. I'm still learning till this day. And again, a lot of it has been helpful by just looking back. And I think for the same for you, if you think about when you guys started AHN to what it is now and like being all over the world, like you've done all of this, but you haven't realized you're manifesting it. But now it's going to be even faster because you know how to expedite it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
It's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about Third Floor Network, the marketing agency and the video production company that you started. We'd love to know, what was the inspiration behind that and what was that journey like?
So when MySpace started going through its trials, because they started trying to build an old website on top of an old website, right? So new platforms come along, and it's always great to be second. So there's Facebook, there's YouTube, there's Twitter. I'm getting calls from these companies, including the music companies, whether it's Pandora, Spotify, etc. And these job offers were coming in, and I started thinking about, well, then I'm just going to work for this company. They're going to give me a salary and then, sell the company and then be done with me. And then now I have to go promote Spotify instead of MySpace. Like, there's made all these artists join MySpace. We had millions there. So, Justin Timberlake, he came on as an investor in the second wave of the new MySpace. And he had a best friend that worked in the office. His name was Kenna. And I was thinking about potentially leaving for one of these big music companies, and I was crying. And I said, this is my baby. I've been here for so long, and I feel bad. The team's gonna feel sad if I go. And he looked at me. He's like, "Do you own this company?" And I said, "No." He's like, "Then why are you crying? Get the F out, And I was like, "You're right." And so before I took a job at another company, I was like, I just want to create something of my own. I like all these relationships I built, and, I wanted to get into video production and to artist relations and publicity and stuff like that. And Third Floor Radio was the name of my radio show. So I called it Third Floor Network. Is really amplifying the power of the network for people to help one another. And I wasn't getting paid for every little thing that I did. I might do publicity free for this one artist, and then I might produce this music video and get charged for this. But it felt good again. Like you go through these phases, and I started remembering the counselor of like, why are you doing the things that you do? And that was, I just really love networking. And I eventually changed it to Roz Marketing, because I think with Third Floor Network, people didn't really associate who it was and what it was. So then, that came to a later iteration. But yeah, I was there for a couple of years before I was approached by an old MySpace.com employee that was a colleague of mine, and said they were looking for a CEO for this company to help closing of their initial funding. And it was a music company initially, and that was when the idea of Divio came, because I helped create the name My Divio, which is my discovery video profile. And they said, just for a couple of years, I'll help build it, and then we were gonna, potentially sell it or create something big. And that's when I worked on that for a couple of yees before we had sold it in 2016. Wow. And so my whole time at Third Floor Network was just strictly focused on creating My Divio.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I love how you rebranded it to Roz, because Brian and I always talk about how personal branding is so important, and for you to find the opportunity to kind of do that rebrand and really make sure that your customers or your clients are connected with who you are and what your brand is. It's very important.
Yeah, it's an advertiser term for run of sight. So Roz, it's like an acronym, but it was really like okay, we need a videographer. Who do we call? let's call Roz. You know, we need
Yeah.
a DJ. Let's call Roz. And that's really what it was.
Yeah.
And it was commission based. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also the first part of your name. So that's the connection that I made to it.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I learned it from Karen Civil too. I don't know if you know Karen Civil, and Oprah. I mean, she's on the cover of her magazine every month, you know. It's the OWN network, you know. She's not like coming up with these brand new. She knows the power of her brand, and so that was the inspiration behind that.
Yeah, love that. What kind of challenges did you face as you're doing this? You know, as a founder, as a CEO, like what challenges were you facing on a daily basis? Because we like to elaborate on those type of stories too, because you know the entrepreneur journey is extremely difficult. You know, you have to look yourself deep in the mirror every morning and like, why am I doing this to myself?
Sure. I mean, the first part when Third Floor Network, there's different phases of my entrepreneurship. So the first one was when I went on by myself and I had savings, and it was my savings that what I was using, right?
Yeah.
I had zero team, you know, and you don't think of like insurance and payroll and all of those different things that come with it, and LLCs, like all those little things, and like paying a CPA, and like you don't think about when you first launch your. The second phase is when I became, you know, I asked to be CMO and not CEO, and I asked to be co-founder because they were just going to make me the CMO, but I was like, no, I need to be a co-founder. I wasn't a co-founder of Myspace, and I helped launch it, and they sold twice, 580 million and then 35 million. So then they made me co-founder, and we were so excited because now we had funding. We had $4 million in funding.
Yeah.
So there's the Third Floor Network with me that was like working from my apartment and my computer. I had a P.O. box as my address. Now we have funding, so we're getting the $12,000 a month office that is a skyrise, and we're getting all these fancy desks and this conference room just so I could bring my mom so she could see the conference room, you know, in Beverly Hills. So just for all entrepreneurs, I think that's what there's twofold. There's number one, we don't predict how much we're going to use of our own savings, and we don't really have an ROI, like a P&L. I didn't know what a P&L was. I was like, I thought you just, and then when you work for yourself, it's harder for people to pay you.
Right.
Because you don't have an accountant, you just have yourself trying to ask somebody else to pay for you. It's like asking a friend when they owe you money, right? But when you have an accountant and you have a team and they know that you're a business, it's easier to say, no, you owe me 10 grand for this project. But if it's you by yourself, they're like, oh, we owe you 10 grand. What's wrong? You just need the money? Are you having hard times? No, but I did the project. And I know a lot of freelance people feel that way, whether you're a photographer or you're like even a restaurant, or anytime you're in a position where you own it, people wait to pay you as much as possible. And so you have to have that flexibility in your income to be able to withhold you from month to month. And then the second part, you know, when we created My Divya, was just the overspending of like in the beginning, like the big, I don't know, the fanciest fax. And we didn't even fax people. We just had a fax machine, that was a coffee machine, like all of this stuff that I think once you get funding as well, you don't think about what's going out and what's coming in. Now that I work for a company, ABS CBN, where every dollar matters, whatever you're spending, we have to know how it's coming back in. I've learned that, like even the $5 that you're spending to buy somebody a coffee, like how are you making that back?
Right.
So when we launched that second company, we spent a lot of money wasted on things like an office. Like now I would have just used a co-working space, you know, like I wouldn't have spent all that money on that high view because what, you know, and I think even during those times, we all bought new cars. We all like, you know, when COVID, I think that's the one thing that made us realize everything. And you talked about, you know, being anxious and being honest about this. There's two things. Number one, like the nice car that you have, the $10,000 bag you have, you can't even use it. You know, and it feels silly now, right? To drive around in your Lamborghini while people are like losing their jobs and you're holding this like whatever this Birkin bag and you're walking by homeless people on the street, you know, like one bag would feed like 10 families in the Philippines. So there's that. And then there's second of like, especially in entertainment during COVID, people started second guessing themselves because these artists, these DJs would travel the world. They would step on stage, get a shot of dopamine from the people that they were entertaining, but now they're stuck at home. And so they're like depressed and they're anxious and they're second guessing. Even myself, I was like, maybe my mom was right. Like I should have gone into law or nursing or something because they're still valuable in this world. Like, what am I doing? So I think, you know, I didn't mean to stray too far from the question, but I think that this COVID time made us really realize what's important. And then now in business, it's even more bottom line. For those entrepreneurs, it's not about what office you're going to get. It's like, how are you going to survive? You know, a lot of restaurants had to close down, a lot of clothing lines, you know, so, you know, and people are getting more into the service side of the industry. But I think those are the main things any entrepreneur will face is, you know, not having the right team also, as, you know, trusting the wrong people. Not having things written down on legal paper. You think that you're best friends or that you're close, but if you don't have stuff written down, and when it comes to things like selling your company, you know, there's things that are gonna happen, and people, you know, won't remember that friendship, but they'll just care more about their greed. So yeah, there's I could go on for days. That's a whole other podcast. I'm an entrepreneur.
Love it. I love the transformation, and you know, you've obviously learned so much throughout your whole journey, and just seeing you become so successful is just amazing. And what would you say would be your goals in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
So in 2016, after we sold my Divio, I was kind of going through that time where I needed Debbie, my guidance counselor, again, because like, what am I gonna do with my life? What am I gonna do that's meaningful? And I started thinking about how she said, you know, what do you love? If you had all the money in the world, what would you do and want to wake up every morning doing? Because that's where your purpose and your passion lies. And I went through all these things in my career, just chasing what I thought was my passion and my purpose. And then I got a call from Apple's team of the Black Eyed Peas, him, will.i.am, Joe Coy, Cassie, Leanne V, and executives from Netflix, Google, and YouTube were being flown to the Philippines from the Philippines Tourism Board on an influencer executive tour of the Philippines. They wanted us to promote the Philippines as a tourist destination so that we can help enrich the culture that lives there. We're still a third world country, but we have some of the most beautiful resources. And so I had never been to the Philippines. I'm 36 years old. I don't speak the language. You know, I'm like, I'm American. And when I walk into my corporate office, I don't want them to see that I'm Filipino. I don't want them to see that I'm 4'11", because that doesn't always work in the corporate world. People will get promoted above you if they start thinking that you're Asian or Filipino first. They'll think that you're not a leader. So I grew up hiding that. But when we went to the Philippines, and the first thing that we saw as soon as we got off the airplane was extreme poverty. You know, you're driving through the streets and you're seeing people that look exactly like you, that look like your nieces and nephews, and they're eating from the trash can, you know. And then we drove to different parts. Apple showed us the schools he built in the Philippines with Google. And then he took us to the beautiful islands of Boracay or Palawan. And then again, you see little kids that are selling trinkets, and they work for one person, and they don't even make the money. That one person is taking all the money. But during that journey, when we were walking through that whole time, everybody recognized Apple, because Apple's the biggest Filipino in the world alongside Manny Pacquiao, and Joe Coy was with us, but he was a new comedian at the time. People would light up when they would see him. You know, we didn't have to deal with traffic because TSA and the cops would like spread out the streets. There were grandmothers that were 95 years old. There was 5-year-old little boys that would stop and they would sing Black Eyed Peas songs. And then I realized what I wanted to do with my 20 years of entertainment experience is to help create more Apples so that anybody throughout the world, you know, can feel that, especially for our community. You know, I could only name Bruno Mars, Illmind, and Apple as the three, but Far East Movement, 4 Asians that I had interviewed in my whole 20-year career. So as soon as I got home, I started volunteering to helping produce different Asian and Filipino festivals. I started producing heritage nights like LA Clippers, Filipino night, Korean night, Chinese night with the Clippers as Roz marketing until I went to go speak for a company called ABS-CBN, which I work for now. And ABS-CBN is basically the Disney of the Philippines. So they had 11,000 employees. They owned movie studios, TV networks, radio stations, record labels, etc. And they asked me to speak at their event called TFCU Talks, which is similar to a TED Talk, but for our community at the colleges. And during that talk, I started learning of what ABS-CBN is and what it did for the Filipino community worldwide. They ran the Filipino channel, which is over 4 million subscribers worldwide. And when I went to go speak at Google with another person that was on that trip with me, the folks at ABS-CBN asked if I could meet with them. And they told me what their plan was to hope to internationalize their music, their content, their events, etc., and asked if I would join as a consultant. And so under Roz Marketing, they were one of my clients. And eventually they said, we don't want you to work on anything else. We'd love if you could just run, be the global head of music. And our Mix platform, which is a TV network and a radio station, mostly for the second gen multicultural Filipinos, similar to a BET. It's created by Filipino creators as well as artists, but it's for the rest of the world to consume. And that was about a year ago. And I said yes, and now I'm a part of ABS-CBN. And it has its new challenges, but it brings back that purpose and that mission. And so now my plan is visibility with credibility for all of us, and I know for some that it's different, it's something that I'm not familiar with because, I don't speak the language, I'm very different in that sense. Everybody at my company speaks Tagalog, and I come from the mainstream side. And so they're looking to be more mainstream, but having to merge the two has been a new challenge, but it's what I'm working on, and it's what's going to happen. Just this year alone, you saw Nicole Scherzinger. She was in a See All Emmys commercial with Billy Porter and Lin-Manuel Miranda, and we worked with the TW and Company and ANA, AIM during the Emmys for that to be on. Our artist Inigo Pascual was in Joe Coy's new Netflix special. Our artist Kiana V released songs with 88 Rising, and now we're working on multiple projects together. And 88 Rising launched Paradise Rising, which is an all Filipino talent label. So I'm creating this for the younger versions of us out there, they don't have to be the lawyer first and go to UCI and like go through that, but they can see themselves and be like, no, mom, Rising is doing it, and they're all from Diamond Bars, so I'm going to be in music. I didn't have that. I was like, I don't know anybody in music, but I just want to do it,
I love that. Yeah.
So Roslynn, what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur? This can be just in general or in entertainment as well.
For an aspiring entrepreneur, what advice would I give? I'm trying to think of myself when I was younger. There's a couple of things. Number one, of course, I always say it, but Martin Luther King said, you don't have to see the entire staircase, just take the first step. So when you're young, you don't really know what you like. You kind of like music. You kind of like art. Just do something, like if you think you want to be a dentist, volunteer that summer and work in the dentist office because you might hate it, So number one, take the first step. And to find out what you really love and what you're passionate about. Don't think about anybody else, but when you wake up in the morning, what would you love doing? And number two, don't be afraid to take credit for your work and archive your success. These interviews make me uncomfortable because I was usually the person interviewing. I was like, why does anyone care what a 4'11" Filipino from Walnut has to say, right? And why should I be interviewed? But I realized by telling my story, there's so many others that feel that way and are excited to learn about this, the people that go to Mount SAC or came from the JC system to Cal State, like there's this whole like fairy tale that's normalized and saying, no, I came from Fullerton, you know, and I worked in the music industry and I went to the Grammys. So it's like, I think that is just also just trusting what you want to do and believing yourself, archiving it and having it on a website, on a YouTube, wherever you can, because that's your resume. You know, your social media is your resume, and that's what's going to get you the next job. It's the in college, for young entrepreneurs still in college, I would say, don't focus just on the classes. Again, no one's taking attendance. Focus on all the other stuff outside of college. The people that you need to meet within the industry, the internships that'll get you the experience, because thousands of people graduate every year. And what differentiates yourself are those relationships and that experience. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting another few years working on that, right? And then for new entrepreneurs that actually have, you know, a product and that they're selling and stuff like that, is really knowing the why. You know, we live in an age again where we don't care about the Gucci bag or the Lamborghini. It's like we care about the why. Like, what is your brand doing to help the rest of the world survive the pandemic right now, and live a life that is content and full? And that's why I'd say start with the why for the established preneurs. For the early on college and high school, is start with the experience and the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that advice a lot. Mm-hmm. I wish I listened to this podcast when I was much younger age. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I love it too. I think a lot of people, they realize that they can make an impact, but it's time to kind of figure out like, how can we use our impact for good? Yeah. So I love that advice.
We're also in an age where, you know, your company is just not a company anymore. It's a brand. It's how are you helping other people? And you nailed it, you know?
Oh, that's one thing I forgot to tell you. Okay. When you first start out, because for me, I was like, oh, I need to work for this music company. I need to be this VJ. And that's when I've succeeded, right? Uh-huh. And then I worked for Myspace for 10 years, and then it became my identity. I was that, you know, that short girl from Myspace. But don't let these companies or these job titles like define you. Mm-hmm. Because what I've seen in the music industry, and it's sad because you have some of the top booking agents now, right, that are making millions of dollars. There's no concerts. There's no Coachella. So they're not making any money, but now they're not getting any phone calls from these so-called friends, right? Mm-hmm. And because they were attached to these companies, they were attached to these titles. You have to know who you are and your value to the people around you first. Mm-hmm. And so you can walk in and out of companies anytime. You won't be attached to that. And if you get laid off, or if you get like, or someone gets hired or this or that, it's like, no, you know your value that you bring into the company. If the company is of no value, you walk yourself out of that. Sometimes we feel so attached to these titles or to these companies, or if we don't get the right title, we don't get the company, we get depressed. But build yourself up to be that self-sustaining business, and you'll have confidence in wherever you go because you'll know your value. You know, you're like, I am Asian Hustle Network, and I know what I bring to the table. What do you have to bring to our table? I have thousands of people that we influence, you know? So I think that's still, I wish I knew that. I wish I knew that like in my 10 years, because it took me, you know, probably a good year and a half before I got the confidence to be like, okay, I could leave this company. It doesn't define me.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, love it. Thank you so much for that advice, Roslynn. Well, it was amazing hearing your story, and it was such an honor to, you know, learn more about you. How can our listeners learn more about you online, and where can they contact you?
All my social media is the same. It's Roslynn C, ROSLYNNC, except for Twitter. There's no C. It's just Roslynn. And then roslync.com is my website. The platform that we just launched is called Mix, MYX. It's a global TV network, radio station in 20 million homes. We're on the Dash Radio platform. We have lots of great music coming out. And we feature everybody. You know, it's I can't wait for our movies and our film and for our events to come. We're going to do some digitally to start. But we'll start, you know, doing more and more events. And Asia Rising, they have their event on Tuesday where one of our artists will be performing. But that's it. You can find us at mix.global, myx.global. And hopefully you see us more. You'll continue to see our visibility in the mainstream with all of us working together. And that's just going to encourage hopefully more to then speak out on their own passions and purpose. And I hope to be the Debbie of somebody in their lives. And that's what I'll continue to do. But
awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
We'll leave all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Roslynn.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to the show.
We would like to get to the top 10 on iTunes, so be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We release an episode every single Wednesday, so stay tuned.
Thank you guys so much.